In this session, we're going to be talking about how to set up teams to get the most out of it as a software engineering organization. Here's a quick intro about myself. My name is Sid Upal, and I'm currently an engineering manager for Teams. I've been with this team since the very beginning. I'm one of the founding members, which means I've seen this group use Teams, and from that's given me an opportunity to learn how to really use Teams to maximize your benefits out of it. And I'm going to share some of those things with you today. I'm very sure that if you adopt some of these practices, you would see the same sort of growth that we've been having in Teams because it's just awesome. So let's dive in. So these are sort of the high-level topics that we're going to be talking about today. We'll start by thinking about how Teams fits into all the other collaboration products that Microsoft has, how to think about Teams and channels, how to do all the things you do while building software, how can you do them inside Teams. So we'll talk about how you can do your Scrum, how you can update your board, pull requests, builds, deployments, how all of that can happen inside Teams. Then we'll get into custom processes. So this is where I'll talk about if you manage bugs a certain way in your organization, how can you do that inside Teams to avoid context switching? And in the end, I'll talk about how can you use apps inside Teams to just sort of bring about a cultural transformation where people are happier working together, and that's really important for success. So let's talk about Teams and channels. So the very first thing we should figure out is how does Teams fit into all the other collaboration apps that Microsoft has? So let's start with the outer loop. So think about scenarios where you have to collaborate with people, but your audience is not predetermined. So think about a website you need to create for customers that are external, or a project website you need to create for other people inside your company. Or think about a video you need to create that you want to share with your people in the company, or you want to have a discussion with whoever wants to talk about it in your company. So SharePoint, Yammer, and Stream are great for this sort of outer loop communication. And now think about scenarios where you want to send a more targeted, formal message to someone. This person could be in another company, and so you need this thing to be ubiquitous. So email is that. So Outlook is a great way to send sort of these formal messages to other people. Teams is great for your inner loop. And here's what I mean by the inner loop. So think about all the things you do while building software. So start from planning, all the discussions you have around code and builds happening, tests running, then you releasing it, and then all the ops stuff kicks in, all the discussions and collaboration that happens on deployments, operating your service, and then monitoring it, and you do this over and over again. So Teams is great for this, and I'll show you how you can set up Teams so you can do all of these things inside Teams and benefit from it. So now that we're getting into Teams, let's think about teams and channels. So team is a group of people who've come together to work on something. So this something could be a common project or a common interest. An interest could be like a hiking or biking. So you create a team for that first. And then channels are workspaces inside this group that you've come together for. So we have two types of channels today. So we have standard channels where the membership is same as the parent team. And we have private channels where you can have a subset of members from the parent team. So for the most part, you want to use standard channels, but you can use private channels for like leadership discussions or stuff like that, which might be randomizing for other people without full context. So stay in standard channels, and I'll show you how that benefits you. So now let's think about channels. So in an email, in an inbox-oriented world, everything comes to your inbox, and then you have to create rules to sort things into folders. So this is where just by using Teams, you start to see benefits. The thing with channels is that your group is doing it for you. All the stuff is separated for you by topic, and then you can catch up on it. So now when all this stuff is spread out into different channels, your next question is going to be, how do I stay on top of all this stuff? So here are four main ideas that we have. So the very first thing you should do is set up notifications for channels so that you get a notification every time a new message is posted or a new reply is posted, only for the channels for things that you work on. So I'll give an example. I work on bot support in Teams. So I have set up my notification settings so that I know whenever we are talking about bots. So whenever someone posts a new message or replies. But I don't work on file support in Teams, but I do care about it. So for catching up with what's happening in files, I rely on the bolding behavior inside Teams. So I go and read stuff in the files channel whenever I have time. So now your question might be, but what about stuff that you didn't get a notification for, or you didn't read? How do you find it? So search is a great way to do that. So all the people in your team are still discussing stuff in different channels. And if you need to find a discussion, you just use your keywords. So in this case, the example I have is I'm trying to find a discussion for an outage. So I can type the ID of the outage in and then find the discussion find the channel where that's happening and jump in if I need to. So now if you found this stuff and your question is, okay, how do I get back to it easily later? That's where you can save messages inside Teams. So 4 main ideas to stay on top of stuff. So now let's get into how apps come in and how can they help you with DevOps. So you've set up your tabs. These are you've set up your channels and these are your topics. Tabs can help bring additional context about that topic into that channel. So think of tabs like you might have displays in a workspace, right? So your displays are showing information that your team cares about. Think about tabs like that, or think about posters you might put in a shared workspace. So tabs can like bring this additional context for your team. So by default, every channel has 2 tabs. You have the posts tab and the files tab, but you can create a bunch more custom tabs using the apps that are available in our catalog. And I will talk about the apps that you should be using in this case in the future slides as we go. So quick thing I wanted to point out here is if there is a tab that you want to use, but that app is not in our store, you can just use the website tab, and that works great as well. So now the next thing is how to think about bots. So tabs were these displays on the wall. Bots are more like digital assistants. So you can use bots to command an external service or an external system from inside Teams by sending a message. So that's one main thing you can do with bots. You can command stuff. So the other thing you can do is with bots, you can look up information without leaving Teams. So you can use a bot and via messaging. You can ask a bot to look up stuff and it can do that and come back to the channel. The other very important thing is that bots can proactively post stuff into channels. So now you can set up something so that when an outage happens, a bot starts a discussion in the channel. And so now I hope some pieces are starting to come together, and I'll show more concrete examples of how you can put all this together. So before I get into the apps and how you use them in channels, I wanted to kind of show some channels that you might have in a software engineering team. So these tend to be typically the channels you would have. So there's a general channel where you discuss about stuff that's relevant throughout the course of your project. So think about major announcements or business reviews that everyone should know about. Initiation is where you can talk about feasibility studies or scoping, business case and so on. In the planning channel, you plan stuff. So you review your plans there. You estimate your budgets and you evaluate risk and stuff like that. Those discussions could happen in the planning channel. In the execution channel, that's where you're building stuff. So your sprint planning, your stand-ups, your retrospectives can happen in that channel. And monitoring channel is where you can have notifications coming in. You can discuss about bugs as well. So these are some like representative examples of the channels you might have. And real quick, the boxes in black there are the apps or tabs you might set up. So now that we've talked about some channels, now let's think about some apps a little bit more. So think about the architecture channel. So the benefit of having a channel like this is that your whole team knows that if something new is about to be built, there will be a discussion about it in the architecture channel. So that gives me an opportunity as someone who works on component A to see if the component B that's about to be built or is about to be changed. I know that I can follow architecture channel, and then I can estimate and figure out how could this new design doc that's been posted, let me think about how does that impact my service or my component. So that's the benefit of having channels like this. So in the architecture review channel, the kind of apps you might be using is Word, where you have your architecture review document, or OneNote, where you capture your meeting notes. In the planning channel, you might have tabs that bring in your backlog, your dashboard on usage. So the apps you might use there is Power BI or GitHub to bring all your issues from your GitHub repo into your channel, or User Voice to look at the User Voice items that are logged, or OneNote and Planner and Azure boards. So basically stuff that you need to think about when you're planning stuff for the next quarter and so on, you can bring those things as tabs and apps as well as connectors or bots. So now let's think about pull requests. So you can set up a proper channel for pull requests so that whenever something is being built, there is a connector posting into the channel. And so you have one place to find out what's happening with your project. So for pull requests, we have Azure repos, we have GitHub, we have Jira, as well as Azure DevOps. So these connectors can post into the channel when a new pull request is created, so you can discuss pull requests there. I'll show some examples of what happens when you do these things and what's the benefit. Ship room channel, same idea. You can have your dashboards in the ship room channel. You can have your meeting agenda inside OneNote or the leadership review decks you've done inside PowerPoint. So these are all the apps you might be using there. In the build and release channel, that's where you talk about builds that are happening, and if a build is blocked from rolling out, why is that? So you can use Azure pipelines, or you can use Jenkins connectors to push stuff into those channels. So hopefully this makes it a little bit more real. And here's an example of the benefit of piping discussion, pull requests, or generally events related to your software from outside teams into teams. So here's an example where Azure DevOps connector posted into the channel when a new pull request is created. And the benefit here is that now the discussion can happen inside Teams itself without you leaving Teams. So you don't have to have 100 different tabs open, and all the stuff that you need for your project is right there in Teams. So now let's think about the other stuff you do while building software. Let's talk about Scrums and builds. So Teams has meeting capabilities built in, which means to run your Scrum, you don't really need anything else. You can start a meeting in the channel, and then others can, they can see that a meeting is happening, and they can just tap on a button to join your Scrum. And then during the Scrum, you can have your Azure board as a tab, and people can give their updates, and you can apply the updates to the board as people give them. So this is great. I did wanted to call out some awesome apps for Scrum that we have in our catalog. So the version of Scrum that I showed earlier was more of an online version, but this is more of, you can also use bots. So we have Scrum Genius and Agile Poly, which are two awesome bots in our store for Scrum. So what these bots would do is they would reach out to your team and get their updates, aggregate the updates, and post them in the channel. So this is sort of a different, everything is online now, but it's still, everybody doesn't have to be online at the same time to give their updates. So this gives a bit more flexibility. We do have an app template available as well. So if you wanted to kind of do Scrum a little bit differently in your team, you can use this app template for ScrumBot and customize it and deploy it in Azure for your organization. I'll be sharing the link for this in a bit, but it's right there as well, ak.ms/app templates. Here's some more examples of events coming into channels. So this is a real example. In our team, we have public GitHub repos, and when an issue is logged there, we have set up a connector so that it would post into the channel, which allows the team to figure out how to respond to the issue. And then, one of us will go and respond there. So great benefit because, again, we don't need to have GitHub open in a separate tab, or all of the relevant stuff for us is piped into categories, into channels, and we can stay on top of it. So this was the example for GitHub. This is an example of build. So we have Azure pipelines and Azure DevOps set up, and you can as well. And the benefit is that there is one place where people can go and discuss things that are blocking builds from rolling out, right? So everybody knows that you can go to the release notifications channel, and then if you're waiting for a build to go out, there would be a discussion happening there, and you can figure out why it's not going out. So there's one huge benefit here as well. So far, I've talked about apps in our catalog and how you can set them up. And now I want to get into custom processes because in my experience, every organization tends to handle bugs, or they tend to have some custom processes that's just unique to the organization. So I'll show you how you can use some of the other things we have to bring stuff into channels. So a very easy way to bring stuff into channels and push stuff is using incoming webhooks. So think about a scenario where you have a system that was built a long time ago and it doesn't have an app in our catalog, and you want to integrate into Teams, right? So how do you do that? I mentioned the website tab earlier, but if you want to push messages into channel, one very easy way to do that is to use an incoming webhook. So to use an incoming webhook, all you need to know to do is to just make an HTTP post, and with the JSON schema that's documented online, then you can have a nice card like this in the channel. So stuff from outside Teams can now start to come into Teams. So incoming webhooks are great, really simple. And we are announcing at Build this year that we will now have adaptive card support inside webhooks as well. Yeah, a lot of people are asking for it. So now let's get into a little bit more powerful sort of ways we have here. Incoming webhooks, you're still writing code and you're able to push stuff. But with Power Automate and Flow, you can basically write pretty complex workflows without writing any code. And you can do a lot of interesting stuff here. So I'll give some examples. So when our on-call rotation ends on Fridays, we have a scenario where we wanted to just summarize the incidents that happened so that we can just see how bad the week was, how many Sev1, Sev2, Sev3, Sev4s fired. So we were doing it manually. We just wrote a flow. So it's basically looking at our incident management database and summarizing the data, posting into the channel at the end of the rotation. So this is just one example. You can do a lot more powerful things with it. So flow can be based on schedule, or bug created somewhere. You can use flow to post into Teams, or you can also do scenarios where you want to update something outside Teams based on stuff happening inside Teams. So let's say a new member joins the team, or a new message is posted in a channel, and you want to do some stuff outside Teams. You can do that using flow without writing any code, using the no-code workflows they have. So, but if you want the ultimate power, your best option is build a custom bot using bot framework. And here's an example. So in our organization, we have a well-defined channel called release blockers. So, and the bugs there are super serious. If you have a release blocker, you want to jump on it and fix it ASAP because it's blocking the whole release. So we automated it using a bot. So this bot is called Arnold. And what it does is whenever a bug is marked as a release blocker, Arnold immediately starts a discussion in the channel. It mentions the developer, the program manager, the engineering manager, all the relevant people. And then we can quickly discuss how to fix this, release blocker bug ASAP. And so there's one place where people can go and find out, is the release blocked, and why is it blocked, right? So that's the benefit here. So gave you a bunch of ways for custom apps as well. And now I want to get into, how do you make sure that the group that's working together is having fun? And if they're having fun working together, you're likely to be much more successful. So I'll show some apps we have in our catalog for this. So we'll start with praise, and I'll anchor this in a scenario or a story. So think about a case where you have an outage at, let's say, 5:30 p.m. and now a bunch of people stay back to fix the issue, and maybe the issue goes late into the night. So now you want to thank those people in a public sort of fashion, and you can use praise for that. We do that in our team as well. So praise ships with a bunch of stickers out of box. If you can use these, and that's great. If you want your own stickers, we have an app template available again, and I'll share the link in a bit. And so you can deploy your own kind of praise type of app and have your own stickers, whatever you want. So praise is great. So the next app that I wanted to call out is Icebreaker. This is an open source app template, so you can take it and deploy in Azure. And the idea here is that you want your team to know each other better, so that when they're having a discussion or negotiating something in a design review, they have more empathy for each other. And one great way is to use this bot. What this bot does is it runs every week, and at random pairs of people for lunch, coffee, or an online meeting. And this is an opportunity for people to kind of ask, why are you working on this, and where are you coming from? What do you want to achieve? And so you just have more empathy for the kind of arguments they're making in meetings, and things are much more smoother. So you can use Icebreaker in Teams, and that's awesome. So so this is some examples of the apps you can use to just have a more lighthearted, fun sort of culture environment in your team. We have Giphy. So instead of just saying awesome as text, you can use a GIF, and that's more dimensional and kind of has more impact. You can use stickers as well, and you can use memes. So again, these things can help you just have more of a lighthearted sort of fun environment so that people are enjoying working with each other. So we have lots of open source app templates available. This is the link. There's more than a dozen of them, ak.ms/app templates. I would highly encourage you to look at them. And see if there's any that you can start with for whatever scenario you have in your mind. So here's the main takeaway I want you to have. When you use Teams for DevOps collaboration, you will not only be more productive, but using all the apps that I talked about, you can actually bring about a cultural transformation where your whole group is having more fun working together. And I think this has been key to our success in Teams as well. This is pretty big. So I hope you are now sold and you're like, yes, we want to do this, and how do I start? So here are some ways you can start. So you can start small. Think about using Teams for a new team that is kicking off, or a new project within the team, or if a project has been going on for a while, think about an existing process or a function and see if you can do that inside Teams. So start small and then build the habit. And here's some ideas. So when you're having a discussion or working on something, see, could this be inside Teams? And then use your status messages or automatic replies to encourage people to find you in Teams. So build the habit, and then make it fun. So I talked about Icebreaker, talked about GIF and stickers and stuff, but you can also create new traditions inside Teams. So do your promotion celebrations in Teams, or virtual lunches, or co-worker appreciation. So make this fun. And when you've been doing this for a little bit, have a hackathon to bring your custom processes inside Teams. So you could use an app template and start there, or people could just implement stuff from scratch. So this would help you kind of get going with Teams in your organization. I want to encourage you to take this survey, which would help us learn your needs better. aka.ms/teams DevOps survey. And I would now go to my colleague Mansi for questions that folks have.
One of the questions we have from Henning is, when I respond in Teams to a PR, is this visible in the PR as well? Will that be posted as a comment in the PR?
Not today. It is only in Teams right now, but we are talking to the team to see if we could. That's at some point it will happen. That your discussions in Teams should sync to pull requests as well. But right now they're in Teams.
Thank you. The other question we have from Greg is there a way to have a bot post to the channel in response to someone mentioning a ticket or PR number, such as the title, status, link, without having to mention the bot?
Yes. So you can do this with Flow. So Flow has a trigger which can fire when a new message is posted in the channel. And then from there, you can poke your bot, basically have an expose a controller, and then you can hit that URL from your Flow. And so this way you can orchestrate something where a certain keyword is detected in the channel and that pokes your bot to do something. Yeah, it's totally possible.
Thank you. One of the other questions we have is, I would really much like to experiment Teams more as a DevOps workspace, and seems like you already have a lot of tools available that I could use as is. But unfortunately, there's a big but coming. I'm working as a consultant at a bigger enterprise, and we both have our own Teams instances. Do you have the support for multi-tenant organizations in your Teams roadmap?
So I'm trying to understand the question better. So we do have, so today you have to switch your tenant from Teams, and yeah, this has come up quite a few times. So I am not sure of when this will be such that you don't have to switch it. Yeah, so I'll have to get back on that. I'm not sure when we would get to it.
One of the other questions we have is from Saurabh, that how to make a restrictive audience. Example, they're moving from on-prem to Azure. The team has developers, DB, etc. How to send messages to specific group. Also, we write in general chat, but not relevant for DBAs. It makes frustrating for them. So many pings, but irrelevant.
So based on the question, I'm guessing, I'm not sure how many channels you have set up. So you should look into setting up the channels properly, and then you can mention the channel. And I think we have announced the hashtagging support as well. So you can tag a bunch of people as engineering managers or DBAs, and then you'd be able to mention the DBAs as well. So sounds like maybe you don't have the channel set up properly, or maybe you're all in group chats. Because your question is at general, I'm guessing everything is happening in general. So I would definitely first want to see if you have the channel set up. If you have the channel set up, then you can look into the hashtags and channel mentions, like I mentioned. Great question.
Yep, thank you. Thanks, Saurabh. One of the other questions that I see coming is from Michael. Would it be possible having a form with required fields within team that creates a ticket within Azure DevOps? I know there is a DevOps app, but we are looking for an option for end users to easily create a ticket.
So you want to create a form from inside Teams and post it. So you can, so I think you can do this with Flow again. With Flow, you can have a thing where it posts an adaptive card and waits for the response. And then you can set it up so that based on the response from the adaptive card, it can then create a ticket. That said, today, adaptive cards do not allow for a field to be marked as mandatory. So what you would have to do is your Flow would basically reply back if it is missing some input. So form validation is there on the adaptive card roadmap, and I would encourage you to vote for it if you want it.
Thank you. One of the other questions that I see here from Alexander is that I love being able to search in Teams discussions about some topics we had before in a team, but the search only bring back the message with the specific keyword searched, not the context, which means the previous and the next messages. Are there improvements planned for that?
I think once you have the search results, you are able to click on it to navigate, and it should show you the messages in the channel. So you should be able to get the context. So yeah, I'm not sure of the question, trying to think what could be the problem. But yeah, from all the things I've tried, I think you can see the discussions before and after. So it should be possible. So I'm not sure what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it might be helpful to see like more information here, Alexander, if you can post, and we can try and answer that part. One of the other questions I see incoming is that we get some of our tasks in through Outlook. Besides manually copy and pasting, is there a smart way to get these tasks into Teams?
So yes, again, flow. So yeah, flow is one of my favorite things right now. So whenever you have a scenario, usually flow has the answer. So you can do this with flow, and I've done that too. So what I've done is I get a notification inside Teams via Flowbot whenever there's a new email that mentions me. So it's definitely possible. You can have a flow trigger that fires whenever a new email arrives, and then you can do some filtering based on the email content and ping you in Teams. And if you're using Planner, you could maybe even create an item in Planner for you.
Yep. Another question that's coming in is that if nested channel support is coming in future?
Not able to answer that. Yeah, cannot say when.
Another question that I'm seeing here is, if a PR is completed, then will there be a notification about it in the team?
So you can set up a connector that posts when a pull request is created, updated, or completed. So I think it would pipe the notification to the channel, though it may not be chained under the previous message. So that would be feedback to the Azure DevOps team, and I would encourage you to give that.
I think that's all the questions that we have, Sid.
Great.
I believe you answered all of them. I hope I didn't miss anyone. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. And thank you, Sid, for the great session.
Yeah, thanks all. Thanks all for joining. Have a great day.